Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. We have made it to January, and you know what that means? It's officially time to get started on our seeds. So today we're going to walk you through our seed haul for the 2023 gardening season, and then once we finish that, we're also going to take you through some tips and tricks that we have learned for seed starting. So if you don't care about what we have purchased this year and what we're starting for seeds, you can click ahead to this point in the video and you can get our tips and tricks.
So typically we like to start thinking about our seed haul and our wish list for the year around Thanksgiving, just so we have plenty of time to go back and forth, look at plenty of pictures, and then sort of plan out where we want each one of the seeds in the garden. So this year we started thinking about that around Thanksgiving. We ordered around December 1st. That way we had plenty of time to get the seeds in and then plan everything, get organized before we actually needed to start our first round of seeds. So why don't we dive right in and show you what we got?
Okay, so today we have 4 different seed companies that we have ordered from. We're going to start things off with Johnny's Seeds. So this is not sponsored in any way by any of these companies. We spent probably about $150, $175 on all of these seeds, which, considering how much we got, is a really great deal. You can save a lot of money by starting seeds in your garden. So with that, let's see what we got from Johnny's. So we have 3 varieties of Lisianthus. We have Rosanne Black Pearl, we have Voyage 2 Champagne, and we have Voyage 2 Lavender. Now, we have not grown Lisianthus before, but we were inspired by Laura over at Garden Answer last season. They're really beautiful, almost like a rose mixed with a tulip, if you will. You can use them in cutting arrangements, or you can leave them, and they'll give you beautiful flowers for weeks to come. And we've got 3 colors here, so we could mix and match and plant them all together, or we can put them in different places in the garden. Now, from the research we have done, we have heard that Lisianthus do take a very long time to actually bloom. So you want to make sure that you're reading the back of your seed packet to see how long before your last frost you need to start. Lisianthus is one of the first seeds that we're going to be starting this year because it takes them a while to get going. So 3 varieties of Lisianthus. Now next... I'm a little bit crazy here, so I am obsessed with foxgloves, and I think Brian is finally getting on board, maybe.
Yeah.
So we've grown foxgloves for the past 2 or 3 seasons from seed, and I'm planning to do a completely separate video about seed starting tips specifically for foxgloves and our journey with them and our experience, but they are really, really great biennial or annual, maybe perennial, depending on where you live. They give you a lot of color for a long time. I'm going to shut up. I'll tell you all about foxgloves in another video, but here's the varieties that we got this year. So we have Dalmatian Peach, we have Camelot Cream, Camelot Lavender, and Camelot Rose. Now, the 4 that I just mentioned will actually bloom the first year. Most foxgloves are a biennial, which means they bloom the second year. Now, we have never grown the second year foxgloves before because we're pretty impatient and we want that instant impact, but I did pick up 2 biennial foxglove varieties this year. We have Pink Gin and Pam's Choice. These are usually a little bit taller, and again, they will bloom the second year, so this year we'll just have foliage.
Yeah, I'm super excited about the second year ones because in pictures that we've seen, they just seem a little bit bigger and stronger. The actual bloom stalks seem like they are much longer and taller. So,
way more impactful, too,
yeah,
in the garden.
I think it's more impact. Obviously, you have to wait a little bit longer, which this will be our first time doing that, so we understand if you don't like to, but I think it'll really pay off next year.
Yeah. Okay. Still going from Johnny's. Next, we have a couple varieties of Aster. So we have Lady Coral Lavender. We have Valkyrie, Brunhilde, Chamois. I probably just completely butchered that.
That's pretty good.
And king size apricot. Now, we have not grown asters from seed before, but I think this is probably another good one for cutting flowers or just keeping them out in the garden. And some of these get pretty tall from what I remember. This king size aster gets 34 to 40 inches tall.
Oh my goodness.
So that's going to be like a 2nd or 3rd row plant, which is going to be really fun.
But also great for cutting, so you have that extra long stem.
Yeah, and you'll notice a theme here with all of the colors we've picked. A lot of purples, a lot of peaches, very soft colors.
Yeah.
We're not super into bold or strong colors in the garden. In containers, we go for that, but usually starting seeds, we try to keep it like very subdued colors. Okay, continuing on, we have Magic Fountains Mix Delphinium and then Magic Fountain's Cherry Blossom, which is a really, really pretty color. We've grown the Magic Fountain mix Delphinium for a couple of years now, and I always wanted this Cherry Blossom color to show up in the mix, but it never has. It's always been like the light blues or the purple.
Cream.
Yeah, so I'm excited to get this Cherry Blossom color. Delphinium is another one that takes a while to grow, so we'll be starting that one pretty soon. I'm going to keep going because we have a lot of Johnny's seeds here. We have Big Smile Dwarf Sunflower, which only gets 12 to 24 inches tall. It's going to be so cute. It's going to be a nice little like front row, and Brian picked this one out.
Yeah.
So we typically don't go for sunflowers because we have a lot of little critters back here in our backyard. Luckily, our fence keeps us away from deer.
Yeah.
But in the past, when we tried to grow sunflowers in the ground, the rabbits just come along and like nip all of the buds.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have some luck if we start these sunflowers in a tray.
If you guys followed us last year on social media, I tried to plant a bunch of beautiful sunflowers that I got sort of all in this big patch. I even ran water straight through them so that they would be really great. They all popped up, and I was so excited about them. They got about 3 inches long, and all of a sudden I came out the next day, and it looked like ants had just eaten them all off right at the ground.
But I think it was rabbits. I don't think it was ants.
Yes, I think that it was rabbits. They were just nipped off like they were clipped. So I think that we'll put a few of these in containers and a few of them in the ground. That way we are sure to get something, even if the critters eat the ones that go in the ground.
Yeah. Next, we have Bronze Queen Nicotiana. Now, I have heard it pronounced Nicotiana. I have heard it pronounced Nicotiana.
I like that one better.
I like Nicotiana better. It's way more fun to say.
She sounds like a fun gal.
But this one gets about 3 feet tall. We have not grown this before. Apparently, it's a really good aphid attractor. So if you struggle with aphids in your garden, this might be one you want to add to your list. It's got like long trumpet-like blooms. We're thinking this one's going to be really cool in the shed bed.
Yeah.
Give some kind of like moody, dark color up there.
Yeah, and Nicotiana is actually in the tobacco family, so it has really beautiful foliage. The leaves are like really large. They actually remind me a little bit of foxglove foliage, but they mound a little bit more than that, and they get really tall. So I'm super excited to grow this one.
Yeah, and it seems like the flowers itself seem pretty big.
Yeah.
It's always hard to tell. Like I'm always kind of shocked by looking at pictures of something that you're ordering seeds, and then when you actually grow it, I feel like it's way bigger than you would think.
Yeah, last year we grew something from seed that I was super excited about. It was like a wild card. I just saw a picture of it and thought it was really beautiful. It had these gorgeous sort of petunia-like flowers, and when we actually grew it and put it in a container, the flowers were like the size of my thumb, like my pinky finger. It was like the tiniest
joke.
flower I've ever seen. It was very pretty up close, but obviously didn't make a huge impact.
Yeah, so read the descriptions when you're ordering your seeds to get, full idea of what you're growing.
Yeah.
Okay, next one is another one that I don't think will bloom until the second year.
Yeah.
This is called Ritro Echinops. I think that's the right way to say that. This is one that we grabbed for our Union garden, which is where we have all of our like purpley blue kind of blooms. This one is really fun. It gets about 4 feet tall, and it's going to have really spiky balls all over it that are like a soft blue color.
Yeah.
Now we're going to have to wait, obviously, for an entire season for this to bloom, but I think it's going to be really cool. Something unique, too.
Yeah, I really love these like textural things that we're sort of adding into the garden this year. In the past few years, it's been all about like building the actual structure of the garden, and now, especially with our annuals and our seeds, we're going to save a lot of money by starting them, and then we're going to add a ton of texture, a ton of color variations, so I think it'll be super fun.
Yeah. Next up, we have Lacy Lavender Blue Didiscus. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, let's look at the back. Okay, yes, so this is one that you want to sow every couple of weeks. That way you'll get continuous flowering over and over. So whether you want to cut them or you want to leave them out in the garden, this is what they would call succession planting. So every couple of weeks you'll go out and sow some more seeds. You can do it, right behind where you have your first variety, or you can continue down a row. But this one is a really soft blue color. I think this one is also going to go in the Union garden.
Yep.
Maybe we'll pop this around some other places too. But it is always nice when you get stuff that you can direct seed.
Yeah.
Because for us, we have a tiny yard, tiny house, and so we run out of seed starting space really quickly. Now, another thing that I went a little crazy with this year is Rudbeckia. And I'm not really sure why, other than I'm just immediately thinking like fall containers.
Yeah.
So something to consider when you're growing Rudbeckia is that they really need the like longest days possible to get full height blooms. And as we move into fall, they do continue to bloom, but the bloom stalks rather get kind of like shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
So even though these varieties that I'm going to share, some of them say they are pretty tall, by the time we get to fall and when we maybe would want to put these in fall containers, they won't be as tall. So the height variation with whatever we decide to put in the container like we did this past fall will actually probably work out really well.
Yeah, and I think this one's one that we kind of planned for. Like, obviously you can cut these and put them in arrangements, but we've actually even planned for maybe like digging them up and repotting them into a container at that time of year, just so we can save a little money.
Yeah. Okay, so I got Rudbeckia from a lot of different places, but I got 3 from Johnny's. So I have Sahara, which is a really pretty mix. We have Cherry Brandy, which has really beautiful dark red petals. And I think this was the first one, I may be misspeaking here, but I think this was the first Rudbeckia ever grown that has this dark petal, which is kind of a fun fact. And then the last one is Gloriosa Double Daisy. Oh my gosh. When I saw this one, I immediately like turned the laptop around to Brian and I was like, we have to have this. So I'm very excited to see that one bloom. Okay, so before we move on from Johnny's, one other thing that I wanted to say is that we order from a lot of different places, obviously, but we really like ordering from Johnny's because on the back of the seed packets, there's a lot of really good, helpful information here about how to grow them, when you should plant them, maybe when you should start them indoors. And then they also sell just regular seeds, and then they also sell pelleted seeds. Now, the difference with pelleted seeds is that there's a little coating on the outside. It will usually either be yellow or white, and we like pelleted because it's much easier to plant because you can actually see the seed on the soil. One of the downsides is with pelleted, you have to use them usually within the first year. After that, they tend to lose some of their germination potential. Just something to keep in mind when you're checking out places to order seeds from. We think that Johnny's is a really great one. Again, it's not sponsored, not paid for at all. We just are really big fans of Johnny's.
Yeah, especially because this is, I mean, our first few years of growing seeds. Obviously, we've learned a lot, and we'll tell you all those tips in another video. But when it's your first few years of growing something, you definitely want a lot more information on it.
Yeah. All right, let's go for swallowtail seeds next.
Yeah, so Swallowtail is a really fun place. They have a lot of unique varieties on their website, so we gravitate towards that because we love unique. Okay, so the first thing that we got from Swallowtail is our coleus. So coleus are something that you guys know we like to grow from seed because you can spread them around the garden. They grow so well everywhere, and we even got some that you can grow in the sun. So the first one we got from Swallowtail is Premium Sun Rose Lime Magic, which is a super bright lime color that sort of like fades to a white, and then there's like a pink right in the middle. So I think it'll be a really cool pop in several places in the garden. We've grown lime before in a lot of places, especially against the black fence. It's really beautiful, and there's just so many varieties of coleus available. They have the giant magma ones that are like huge leaved, so I think these will be really pretty in the garden.
And a couple things to keep in mind when you're ordering coleus is that you want to take a look to see whether they are shade or sun tolerant.
Yes.
Most coleus are typically only tolerant of shade. So if you go and put them in the sun, they're either going to be like really crispy and lose all of their color, or they will just sit there and you'll wonder, what the heck am I doing wrong? So for us, we typically go for coleus that only take sun just because it's a little bit easier that way. You don't have to be as careful. Another thing about growing coleus from seed is that unlike some of the new coleus that you may buy at your garden center, these do typically grow their seed heads a little bit earlier. So you will have to do a little bit more maintenance and go around and like pop those seed heads off if you still want to continue to get foliage. But you know, we're used to garden maintenance at this point, so we don't mind.
Yeah, and these are pelletized, so that's a little bit easier, like Tyler said, for planting. All right, let's move on. The next thing is Marbles Yellow Red 4 O'Clocks. So I'm so excited about these because my grandma in Florida used to grow 4 O'Clocks in her garden around her pool, and they were so beautiful. So they get sort of bushy, and and then the blooms open right around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And they sell these in a lot of different colors. I think my grandma's were all like a hot pink color, but I'm really excited about these because they are sort of a peachy orange color, and I think that that's really unique. I've never seen that kind of 4 o'clock before. So I'm really excited to see these in the garden just because they remind me of her, but also they're really fun to grow. They have a sort of star-shaped bloom, and so I think that will be a really nice addition.
It kind of looks like a petunia a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. They are sort of a trumpet.
Bigger? Is it bigger than a petunia? Like what size are we talking about?
I would say it's about the same size as petunia, and they sort of have that trumpet look, like the Nicotiana when we were talking about that earlier. So same idea, but this is a much bushier, I'll say, plant than a Nicotiana.
Is this the one that you said we'll never get rid of it because it reseeds?
Yes, I will say that 4 o'clocks definitely reseed. The seeds on them are a little bit bigger, and so they tend to get a little bit heavy on the plant and fall right off, and so then they can come right up. But if you look at it another way, you can easily gather those seeds and grow them year to year and start them, give them away, whatever you want.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. All right, so the next one is Little Miss Sunshine Goldenrod. So obviously goldenrod,
cute.
I know, this is a shorter goldenrod, about 12 inches, so we're super excited about that. But usually you see, especially in the South, goldenrod along highways and like interstates, and they grow wild in most places. It is a native plant, so we're happy to have that in the garden. But I also just love how soft and yellow goldenrod looks. It's a pop that you always need, and so when you see it in the wild, you just love it, and obviously pollinators are drawn to it. So I think this one's going to be really wild and sort of exciting in the garden, and leans a little bit cottagey, but I'm happy about it.
Yeah. I think it'll be nice.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on. The next variety is Jupiter's Beard. So this is one that is going to be a little bit different for us to grow. It's sort of, the bloom on it looks like a cloud. We do have Bluebeard in the garden, and I would say the bloom is very similar to that.
Like it kind of like stacks up.
Exactly, and it's sort of like clouds that stack on top of one another. So we got two different colors of this one. The first one is Pretty Betsy, Jupiter's Beard.
That's kind of more like your standard color. It's like a hot pink, almost red.
Yeah, and the next one is Snow Cloud, Jupiter's Beard, which is a white variety. All right, back to the Rudbeckia.
Oh, God. Is anybody keeping count on how many Rudbeckia seeds we have now?
I certainly am not, but I'm sure later on when we get them in the garden, I'm going to go, how many of these are there?
Jeez.
So the first one we got from Swallowtail is Cherokee Sunset. So this is a mix, and it says here on the packet, it's got bronze, red, orange, yellow, and mahogany, including some bicolor flowers.
Ooh, I didn't see that part.
Yeah, so I think this one will be
so
really like fall. If all these bloom before fall, we're going to really be in the mood for Thanksgiving a little bit early.
Oh, well.
And the last one we got is Denver Daisy Rudbeckia, and that's sort of your classic like sunflower, black-eyed Susan look. It's yellow on the outside, and then on the inside, it's kind of got that mahogany color. So I think this will be really pretty too.
And that one has like a little extra ring. So not just like the coney center.
Yeah.
It has like a little extra burgundy brown kind of ring.
Yeah.
Which will make the center of the flower look like much bigger.
Very yellow, orange summer garden we've got going here. I'm super excited. Okay, so the last one we got is Zulu Warrior. This is one that's I think going to be so unique in the garden, and it's got tall, spiky leaves, and then the flower is purple, sort of dahlia-like. So it's got this huge 3-inch flower on it, and I've just never seen anything like it. So I'm really happy that we got this one.
Yeah, and this one I think, if I'm remembering correctly, is from South Africa, which is really like sentimental to me. That was the last big trip I went on before 2020 happened. So to have something in our garden from South Africa is pretty cool.
Yeah, excited to grow it. Okay, so that's it for Swallowtail. Like I said, if you're interested in unique seed varieties, be sure that you check those out. Okay, so let's move on to Floret.
Okay, so I was not planning to buy anything else. I had stopped.
This table is quite full for you not to be planning to buy anything else.
And a lovely garden influencer reached out to me on Instagram and said, have you bought your seeds from Floret yet? And I said, well, no, I haven't. Let me log on. So I have just a handful of varieties. So first one is Larkspur Smoky Eyes. Now, I have always been confused what the difference is between Larkspur and Delphinium. And I think I have this right. Delphinium can be Larkspur, but Larkspur is not necessarily Delphinium. So as in a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square.
Okay, sure.
I'm sure this is incorrect information, so let us know in the comments if that is wrong, but that is how I understand it. So usually Delphinium, I start indoors. We have tried to start them out in the garden before in the fall, and it just doesn't work for us. But on the back of this larkspur packet, it does say that you can direct seed them in late fall or early spring, and it says that they do best when they're sown directly. So I think we're going to try to sow these directly after the last frost. This one is really pretty because it's purple, but also kind of gray, which will be fun. I think this would be a really cool addition to the Union Garden. And this one gets 3 to 4 feet tall, so that would give us some really nice height over there.
3 to 4 feet tall bloom.
Yeah. And I think that there are about 50 seeds in this. So we could really go crazy if we wanted to.
Yeah, so you could say we saved money by logging back on.
Sure, I'll say that. Yes. Another foxglove.
Oh my gosh.
Shocker. So this is one that I actually wanted from somewhere else. It was out of stock. Of course, it was in stock at Floret. This one is called Apricot Beauty. Now this is another biennial. I kind of attribute this to looking like Dalmatian peach. It just is like the bigger version.
Yep.
So let's look at, so Dalmatian peach gets 24 to 36 inches tall, blooms the first year. This Apricot Beauty will bloom the second year, but it gets 48 to 72 inches tall.
72 inches? Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah,
That is definitely worth the wait.
Yes, I really hope it happens, and I hope they get that tall because this garden will just be overflowing with color.
Like that's just like so fun to come out here and see this tall, spiky thing with like trumpet blooms on it.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Last one from Floret is another Nicotiana, grandiflora. This one is fully white. So this is one we grabbed for the moon garden. Gets 32 to 38 inches tall. Pretty standard. Again, I think this has really giant blooms from the pictures I could see where on Floret, you know, she usually is like holding the bloom or the stalk, and it looks pretty big in her hands.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for the impact that's going to make on the moon garden. Okay, so that is it for Floret. We have one more seed company to go through. Go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, so this is Eden Brothers. Eden Brothers is sort of an old faithful. They're another one that we have ordered from before, and we really like their seeds.
And I think this one is in North Carolina, right?
Yes, this is actually sort of down the street from where my parents live, over near Asheville, North Carolina. So we are going to have to try to stop by and pick up some more seeds next time we're there, if they're open to the public. So the first thing we got from them is Passiflora seeds. A lot of people call this passion flower. And there's a space in our Union Garden at the very end that I am planning to, so this is a vine, and so I'm planning to run this all the way up the wall and over a window. Our bathroom window is right there at the end, and so I think it'll be really beautiful growing over the top of that. The next one is Love in a Mist, and this is blue. I think this one has a really pretty blue flower on it. It sort of has that clematis look. It's mounded, so definitely excited about that one. I don't know how...
Another Rudbeckia, shocker.
I don't know how we made it back here, but...
Are you keeping count?
But here's another Rudbeckia. This one's called Goldilocks.
So this one is kind of like a double from what I could tell in the picture. So really fluffy blooms, but you still get that hard brown center. Another good addition. I mean, I'm excited.
This garden, we're gonna have some turkey every single day in this garden. It's gonna be Thanksgiving all year long. All right, so last seed packet we have, this is Dame's Rocket, and this is violet, which is a really sort of hot pink violet color. So these are long-stemmed purple flowers with green stalks and large leaves. This sort of reminds me of phlox a little bit, and we have some garden phlox already, but I think this will be a nice addition.
Yeah, and this will give us some nice height too. This is another direct sow, and I think we're planning to put this in the Union Garden, which will give us some good height and be really pretty with those larkspur.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Okay, so we have 2 honorable mentions that were sent to us.
Yeah, I can take the first one. So this is Shirley Poppy. It's Amazing Gray, and this was sort of serendipitous because a company that I work with a lot they sent this to us in a Christmas card, which I was so thankful for. And they had no idea, but I've always wanted to grow poppies in the garden, and Amazing Gray was the one in the past few years that I've seen that I just thought was so gorgeous. It is obviously a very smoky gray color, like the name says, and I think it's going to be really beautiful. I've never grown poppies here before, and I'm not sure how it's going to go. But I am excited to try, and I'm excited that this is the one that we got. So thank you to Blue Chalk for sending this out.
And then the last one is from Baker Creek, which is an honorable mention because we do not have any seeds here from Baker Creek. But this is, I'm going to say this wrong, Salpiglossus Cafe au lait. Brian was asking me, we were putting this into a form the other day, and Brian was asking me, how do you spell this? And I was like, Salpiglossus. So we've never grown this one before, and it says so indoors, so we'll have to find a spot for it on our tray, but it looks like it's a really pretty dark purpley, almost black, if you can see that. Should be a nice moody addition to our garden.
Yeah, and this one's pretty short, so this is one where I don't know if we've told you this yet, but we have a planter box on our back deck, and this year we are going to be using that exclusively for cut flowers. And so we obviously needed something that's a little short, and so this stays short, and I think that we're going to just fill it up with some of these. I might actually order some additional colors so that we can just fill the whole thing up and it can be beautiful, and we can walk back there anytime we want and cut flowers off of it.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so enough of us yakking about the seeds. Let us clean up. We're going to go grab our supplies that we use for seed starting, and we're going to give you guys some tips. Okay, now that we've got all our goodies here, we're going to run through 10 seed starting tips to make sure that you guys have success this year.
Yeah, we've been doing this for a few years, and so we're not experts, but we have learned some things not to do and some things that are really helpful, and so we want to be sure that we share those with you guys.
Yep.
Okay, so the first tip is to know your last frost date. That will determine almost all of your seed starting and when you should start. So you can easily Google when is the last frost date in your zone. Our zone is 7B. Our last frost date is around April 11th. So we know all of the seeds that we start. On the seed packet, it'll say you need to start this X number of weeks before your last frost date. And so that'll really help you to know.
And you just have to keep in mind, once you get close to that last frost date, it is not a determinant that is when the last frost date is going to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's earlier, sometimes you get a way late last frost, and so you just have to keep track of the weather. It's one of the cons of seed starting, I guess.
Yeah, and I'll say right there at the end, you'll probably run into, I have a lot of plants in the house that I'm moving around, moving in and out a little bit, and so that's part of the fun of it.
Okay, next one is make sure that you read your seed packets on information for when to start your seeds. This kind of builds off of the last point of the frost date. So for example, most Foxglove seed packets will say start 10 to 12 weeks prior to last frost. If you do the math, for us, we're even a little bit late starting them at this point.
Yep.
And the reason why you have to start them so early is because it takes a long time for them to build up enough foliage and enough roots where they can really be transplanted out into the garden and be ready for full sun, environmental conditions, things like that. Now, other things like coleus, you don't need to start those until about 4 to 6 weeks prior to your last frost date because they grow really fast. Mm-hmm. And we learned that mistake our first year because we started coleus around Valentine's Day. So we were overrun with coleus by the time we got to April.
Yeah.
So just trial and error, and there's never any perfect seed starting year. Just make sure you read your seed packets to get all the information.
Okay, so our third tip is to make a spreadsheet and keep all of this information organized. So Tyler is king of spreadsheets. He does this for a living. He can create a formula for pretty much anything on earth that he wants to know. So of course we created an Excel spreadsheet for this, and I'm sure we'll pop it up on the screen now. But we start with pictures of every single variety that we plan on growing, obviously names and things like that. We include how to grow it, where to grow it, and then we also include when to start it. And when to start it is the key one here because then we can sort by that date and then understand we need to start Lisianthus first because that takes the longest to germinate.
One other thing that I do, which is a little bit of an advanced tip, but I take the number of seed starting trays that we have, do the math for the number of cells, and I put that at the very bottom of my spreadsheet. And then I go through each line of seeds and say, like, okay, I can grow 12 foxgloves this year, 10 delphiniums, until I get all the way to 0 at the bottom. And that lets me know if I maybe have some cells that are going to be empty, or if I have overfilled my seeds. It just keeps everything a little bit organized.
Yeah, and if you're like us, organization is key, especially because we just don't have much space in the house to grow. So we really, every one of these cells matters.
Yep. Now, number 4 is an important one. If you've never grown things from seed indoors before, you may think that you could just go to your local hardware store and get some potting soil and you'll be good to go. And that is actually not the truth. So you want to make sure that you actually get seed starting mix, just like we have here. We have the Espoma brand. Yep. Now, you do not have to use Espoma. We have used Miracle Grow. I think we've used maybe Fox Farms. Yep. All of them are great. They do exactly the same thing. They are really lofty soils that allow for those little teeny tiny baby roots to penetrate through. If you get the heavy normal potting soils, it's just too dense. It's going to hold on to way too much water. The roots are not going to be able to make their way through, and you're just not going to have success. Now, in addition to using seed starting mix, we also recommend that you get some kind of vermiculite just to put a thin layer over top of your seedlings once you finish. By using vermiculite, you do reduce the risk of having any kind of mold or algae growing on top of your seedlings, and it just helps you have better success rate.
Yeah, we really like using Espoma products, so that's why we're using these. But we have used all of the rest of them. They work pretty well. We just have a lot of success with Espoma's products, and so we're excited to try the soil too. Yeah. Okay, so the next tip is invest in good lighting. So this is one that may not seem quite as obvious. All grow lights are called grow lights, so you may not know the difference, but we found in our first year of doing this that we just didn't have enough light, and so we started with little strip lights. They were probably 1/2 inch wide by maybe 1 foot long, and we just put one strip above a cell tray, and that was just not enough light. Obviously, like, these plants normally grow under the sun, which is very bright light, and so the brighter the better. So this past year we invested in some full coverage lights that have a lot of options. You can turn them up for brighter light, you can turn them down if you need to, and that really changed the game for us. So we will put the link to those lights in the bio section of this video for you, but I would say invest in good lighting, invest in full coverage lighting, even if you can't get something that has a lot of options for how bright you can go. Invest in a larger light that covers more area and you'll be safe.
And, I think we should add to this that we do not have any kind of fancy light kit or, shelving unit that has lights built into it. Now, that is on our wish list, and eventually maybe we will get to it, but you do not need to have any of that to get started. You just need to have really good lighting. You need to have some kind of structure that you can affix the lighting to, and a place for your seed trays to sit. That's it. So you can make this as cheap or as expensive as you would like it to be. And for us, it's a really great way to save money in the garden. So we cut corners. We have an IKEA bookshelf that we have all of our lighting attached to, and then the seed trays sit on the shelves. So I'll link that IKEA bookshelf as well in case you guys are interested.
It served last year a really great purpose. We sort of we overloaded it with seed trays, and it worked out really, really well. We didn't spend a lot of money, so we want to save money here. And that's what we did. Yep.
Tip number 6 is an important one. So when you are starting seeds, you will sometimes see, if you research online, some people just get a big giant tray, fill it with soil, start all their seeds, and then they kind of divide them from there. For us, we wanted a tray that had individual cells where we could plant a few different varieties of things within one tray and not have to worry about cross-contaminating or figuring out which seedlings are which. And so for us, the tray that has worked the best is the Grow Ease kit from Gardener's Supply. So this is a brand new one that I just unboxed. So this has a little raised up piece that goes, I'll just put this together for you guys. So this is the bottom of the tray that you will fill with water. And then we put this little riser in. And then there is a wicking pad that sits inside of the seed starting tray. And there's a little bit extra that you'll tip down into the water. and all of your water will start to absorb up onto this pad, and then you'll put your tray filled with soil and your seedlings on top. And what happens is the seedlings' roots will grow down through the bottom of this tray. There's little holes, and it will wick up all of the water into your seedlings. It's a really great way to self-water your seedlings. Bottom water is great for seedlings to begin with. It teaches them to go down for water so that when you transplant them out into the garden, there won't be as many issues as them searching for water or where do the roots go, what's going on. This has been a really good success for us. Yeah. There's 24 cells in here. I know that is a little bit smaller than maybe your typical seed starting trays. I think a lot of them have 72 cells, but those cells are much smaller. So most of the time you can get away with not repotting these up before you put them out into the yard. Now for us, we do typically size them up into another container, which you'll figure out why in a couple of tips. But these are really great if you're interested in buying new seed starting trays. They do come with a dome as well, so you'll put the dome on top before you get any germination, and then once the seedlings have come up, take the lid off, you're good to go.
Yeah, so the key to this one is the moisture. So this obviously is self-watering, like Tyler said, and I think that watering can be hard when you're growing seeds because you never want to overwater, but you obviously never want your seedlings to dry out. And this one just manages that process for you a little better. So you just fill up the tray with water, it wicks the water right up to the top, and they're always watered as much as they need, and you don't have to sort of manage it yourself. The moisture dome helps a lot too, which is pretty standard. All right, so tip number 7 is an oscillating fan. So obviously we are growing these seeds inside, which is not exactly the environment that they are used to. And so it's nice to sort of simulate that environment by using an oscillating fan. Turn the fan on whenever the seedlings come up. It will create some wind that sort of runs around the room and disturbs them a little bit. That way they grow strong stems and they're not weak when they get back outside. A few years back we grew foxgloves and we didn't have a fan, and they had really, really weak, tiny stems. Of course, we still planted them out, and they still did great, but the oscillating fan has really changed the game for us.
Number 8, make sure to harden off your seedlings gradually as the temperature starts to warm up. So as we approach April 11th here in Charlotte, it's not going to be 40 degrees every day. Nope. Once we get into middle of March, late March, we start to have pretty warm days, and that's when we start to do the crazy task of bringing the plants in and out every day. So what hardening off does is it allows your plants to slowly get used to outside environment without shocking them. So if you were to take your seedlings you've been growing inside for, let's say, 10 weeks, bring them straight outside, sit them on this table right here in the sun, in March, they would fry. They would be completely done. All of your hard work would be over. So what we do is, for the first day when we decide, okay, we're going to start hardening these off, they are full enough, they are big enough, we bring them outside for 1 hour. And I usually sit them on our front porch, which is in a little bit of some shade. They'll get a little bit of light, but not direct sunlight. And then after my timer goes off for an hour, back inside they go. The next day, 2 hours, and so on from there, until you get them built up to a full day. Now, you want to keep track of your temperatures here outside, because if you're going to drop anywhere close to the 30s, you want to bring those suckers inside for nighttime. Never want to leave them overnight unless you're going to be far away from freezing temperatures. So it's a lot of work. Usually March, we're like up in the morning, lugging all of the plants outside, and then right after dinner, we bring them back inside and water them, and they are ready to go to bed for the night. But it is a really important process in seed starting to make sure that they are fully developed and ready to go outside in the real world environment.
Yeah, I would say make sure that you put them somewhere covered so that they aren't in full stark sun that can burn them out really easily. And then last year we ran into this a lot where a rain was coming. It obviously storms a lot in the south here, and we had to run out here and get them all, bring them inside before they all got flooded out. So just remember that.
Number 9 is a really big one for us. So our first year growing seedlings, we had no experience. We did not know what we were doing whatsoever. And so we were a little bit afraid. We did not fertilize our seedlings at all. And they did work. They bloomed, but they were not as strong as they could have been had we fertilized. So what we use is the Espoma indoor fertilizer. You may also see this labeled as Grow. As long as it's in this green container, it has the same composition. So we fertilize our seedlings as soon as they have their third set of leaves, which is their second set of true leaves. So when your seedlings emerge, they will have a set of leaves that is called the Grow leaves. They look the same on virtually every plant, and those little leaves allow them to collect enough energy to push out their first set of true leaves. And then from there, they'll push out another set of true leaves. When you see that third set of leaves, that's when you can go in with your fertilizer. However, you want to slowly get them introduced to the fertilizer. So I typically start at 1/4 of a strength just to like ease them into it. I mix this up in a little bowl, and then I have a little eyedropper that I suck up the water, and I just kind of drip a little bit in each cell. After you, and this is once a week, so you'll give them that 1/4 strength fertilizer, and then the following week you can bump it up to half strength, and then maybe do half strength for a couple of weeks, and then you can go to full strength. And I promise you, you will see amazing results. Our foxgloves compared first year when we did not fertilize to last year when we did fertilize is insane.
It's silly.
I'll find some pictures and pop them up on the screen, but with the fertilizer, you just get much bigger plants, much more established plants when you go to transplant them out into the garden. And it just gives you a lot more peace of mind that you're not going to have to worry about, are my plants going to survive? Are they going to have big enough roots? I promise you, with the fertilizer, they're going to make it. They're going to be A-okay. So don't be afraid to use it. Just make sure you're following the instructions on the back for the ratios, and then you want to make sure you're cutting that into 1/4 or half strength doses.
Final tip number 10, is thinning. So typically you plant 2 to 3 seeds per cell just to make sure that there's germination in the cell. So if 1 or 2 of those seeds don't come up, then you've got the third one. Most of the time, all 3 of those seeds will come up in the cell, and a lot of people will encourage you to thin them out. So that's literally cut 2 of them out of the cell and just leave 1 of them, so the 1 of them can get really strong and large. We don't do that, so our philosophy is thinning. Don't do it, because we just like to have, triple the amount of plants. Obviously, we need to separate those when we go to transplant them outside to give them more space, but who wouldn't want to grow 3 times as many plants in the same cell if you can do that? And so I would say do this if you want to, but it's not totally necessary. We've had really great success with not doing it. Just have to transplant a little bit more, but it's a lot more bang for your buck.
Yeah, and it hurts to go in there and cut back plants that you grew from seed. It really hurts. So if you decide to not thin, you are probably going to have to bump up your plants from this cell, which is what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So for example, last year we started out with, I had 1 full tray of foxgloves, and we did not thin, so we ended up with 48 foxgloves. But about 6 weeks in, we did pull them out and gently kind of separate them and bump them up into their own container. But we got double the foxgloves that we bargained for, and then we were able to give them away as gifts for Mother's Day, birthdays. Like, it's just really fun to be able to give away your plants too. So if you're open to not thinning, we encourage you to not do it.
All right, well, we hope you guys have really enjoyed all of these tips.
Thanks for sticking around. This is a long video. If you made it here, thank you very much. We hope that we're able to help you or inspire you in some way.
Be sure to subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed this video. That way you get notifications every Wednesday when we post a new video. And we will see you next time.
Bye.